Hello, Peter Bulger here, and welcome to today's edition of The Transition Guy. Now, today's episode, I want to talk about what happens when you've got a fractious, disjointed leadership. What happens when your leadership is going in two separate directions. And really, I want to share with you a story. So I'm a member of a number of coaching organisations, and unfortunately, one of the organisations that I'm part of, unfortunately what happened here is that the leadership broke. We had two partners within the business and they no longer saw eye to eye. And there's been divisions. And in all fairness, this has been going on for years now. Now, what people tend not to realise is actually who gets affected by all of this. So when you take the sort of the coaches and members of this organisation, what was happening over the years is that we would notice that there was this tension, that there was this sort of what I would call disunity within the organisation. It was like basically watching mummy and daddy have a squabble. It was like the parents were arguing, and it was like we were starting to become part of a whole divorce process. It was like we were in a custody battle. And this had been going on for years, and then eventually sort of the straw that broke the camel's back snapped, and they've agreed to go their separate ways. Now that whole going your separate ways has sort of thrown up a whole lot of new challenges, believe it or not. And it is, well, now we've got two separate organisations, you've got the whole sort of faction starting to form, where now we have two leaders in the business and you've got two sets of loyalties, and where before we was like all unified as one, you've now got people deciding, having to make a choice. Well, who do I follow? Where does my sort of loyalties lie? And that's the first thing, where does my loyalties lie? It's like the loyalties no longer really sort of relate to the organisation. It's now my loyalty towards a leader. And really what's quite disturbing is when I was out on a trip recently, what I noticed was we had friends. And you can imagine we've been friends for a long time. And some people have made a decision. Some people have decided to go with the other organisation because it best serves their needs, really, which is understandable. You can only sort of say, okay, well, fair enough. You're not going to expect someone just to stay because someone's a great leader. But what amazed me was actually the bitterness that was starting to come out. I was starting to hear language in like, oh, that person's gone over to the dark side. And it was coming from both organisations, and I couldn't believe that all of a sudden, where we were once all really close friends and everything, just because someone made a decision that someone else didn't feel comfortable with, well, guess what? It started to cause disharmony. It started to cause friction. It actually started to distrust. And in some cases, I would say it was the beginning of actually hatred, which I found absolutely alien. How can this be? How can you be really angry for someone making a decision? And I was looking at how this unfolds, etc., and how it's been unfolding. And I was thinking to myself, do you know what? Is it really any dissimilar to what goes on in organisations? Is it any dissimilar to what goes on in day-to-day business? And it isn't. You see, we kid ourselves when we say, well, this stuff doesn't happen in an organisation. But the reality is it happens all the time. It happens when you've got leaders that are very strong, they disagree with the leadership team, they go creating their little silos, and you see silos all the time. If you don't think that there's silos in business, then you are totally in denial. And then what happens is that these little factions, well, they look after their own little department, and it's not about the good of the order anymore. It's not about achieving the company's goals and the company's aspirations. It's about, hey, listen, do you know what? We're going to look after our little, what I would call our little silo, our little castle. And that's just not really on. I mean, take it from me, after seeing what I've seen, I mean, coaches can behave this way. Well, I can tell you, say, employees will have no problems doing this. And you've got to say to yourself, in your business, is your actual leadership truly strong? Are you united as a team, or have you got people feathering their own nest? I'll give you another great example where this is so prevalent. This is so prevalent right now in the UK government. You got Theresa May sort of running the government. And to be frank, I think they're struggling over the whole Brexit thing. I don't think they can quite get their head around Brexit, etc. And for months and months and months, all Boris Johnson's done is totally taken her legs away at the knees. All he's doing is undermining her. And guess what he's doing? He's starting to gather momentum. It's starting to divide the party. In fact, it's probably dividing the nation. That is unhealthy. See, the only way that we're going to get through Brexit is if we all follow one plan. Whether we agree with Brexit or not, it's no longer the case. Okay? It's happening. So what we now need to do is support it happening in the best possible fashion. All this infighting and making the government look weak, it just weakens our position in Europe. And a bit like in a business, it just weakens the whole business. So, that's a big lesson learned for me. Check out your business, do a health check. Is your leadership team truly aligned? Have you got a couple of the outliers there that perhaps are strong, that are starting to do a leadership challenge, not on your bus, undermining you, and perhaps now starting to confuse the workforce? If you've got that happening, you need to deal with it. Because if you don't deal with it, it's going to come and bite you in your backside, and that's such a truth. So if anything I've talked about today resonates with you, head over to Bulka.com and get in touch. And remember, failing to learn is learning to fail.